Hey, what's up, North County? I'm your host, Randy Doty, and today we are following up with the Paso Water Basin with Greg Graywall and John Tucker. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us back.
Yeah, so this is kind of obviously a big thing here in the North County. Again, you know, we're here to help, you know, the voice and, you know, the platform, you know, so to speak, kind of just another way to get the messages out, I guess. So, but John, I'm going to start with you since, Greg, we've had you on before as well. But John, so tell me a little bit about you and what you got going on here.
Absolutely. So first of all, the good news is I got about 4 years worth of water dumped on my property last night that my family uses. So huzzah there.
Nice. How much rain did we get?
We got an inch on ours. So
cool.
Yeah, we're right over the hill from here. So it's about
very
a
awesome.
5-minute drive. But yeah, but the bad news, apparently we're supposed to subsidize sustainability for the rest of the basin, despite the fact that that's the minimal amount that we consume. So it's that really is kind of the initial shock, I guess, that we got from. I tuned in to all this back in December when they did the town hall, which was a little bit of kind of news to me. Spent pretty much since December kind of educating myself on the topic as much as possible. It's incredibly complex. Folks like Greg here have been instrumental in kind of helping process exactly what's going on and who's in charge of what. And from my perspective, my background is in political science and marketing, so I'm kind of trying to use both, with this and really getting back to some basic principles in terms of property rights and individual liberties and natural rights and there's obviously just a constant battle for those it is a universal constant, and I think our founders did a great job constructing a system that helps us navigate these issues.
Now, John. So you started a page, right? You got the Paso Water.
PasoWater.com. Yep.
Basin Facebook page or something.
Yeah, and the Facebook page. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
And so, Greg, if I understand this right, this all started back in like 2005. This is when this message or this push started happening.
2005, in Santa Maria, they had an adjudication. And because the similar thing was happening, it was settled. People up here, by people I mean the city of Paso Robles and the county and certain agencies were worried that they didn't want the basin adjudicated. And all adjudication means is the court makes a decision. It can be a friendly adjudication. The court comes in and makes a determination on how the basin is divided up equally amongst all the people that live over the basin. They didn't want that because they don't want equal. They want to use what they want to use, and they'll tell you what you get to use. So they came up with this thing called the prior agreement, and the prior agreement prior was certain landowners, and then the other signatories were the City of Paso, the CSD of San Miguel, CSD of Templeton, and the county acting as the technical advisor on this. Well, and everybody agreed the basin was not an overdraft. There was no problems. They promised never to file for prescription. And they would do what they needed to do to manage the basin, do the studies, keep everything. And as soon as the Nasi water came online, they would use Nasi water. Now, Nacimiento took a while to get that voted in, and it started in 2008, the pipeline. It was completed in 2011. As soon as they turned it on, they found their first major leak. They had to turn it off, and it was off for 8 months before they did a temporary fix on that. Basically, they put a sleeve inside the pipe. So they put another straw through the other straw under the river where it crossed up somewhere around Wilsona area. So I'm trying to find out, there's a meeting at 4 o'clock this evening of the Nasi partners over in Templeton. But some of my question of that, so the water was turned on in 2011. Here we are in 2025. There's been at least 6 repairs, none of them really permanent. There's a reduction in the Nassau pipeline of over 3,900 acre feet, so they can't even get the 100% of water that they are allocated. It took 60 years to build the pipeline from when they got the water. It cost almost $200 million. What did all these temporary repairs cost? And this is a really big part of this because Paso Robles started out with 4,000 and then went up to 6,488. So we'll just round off and say they got 6,500. They use 1,000, maybe 1,100. Just think if they used their whole complement, or the 5,000 that they're wasting, and they put that through their homes and businesses, and when that water went to their treatment plant and was treated, that they treated it such that they could recharge it, and you'd have a 10,000 acre foot swing. Instead, they pump 5,000 acre feet. They don't use their Nacimiento water, so they waste 5,000. They pump 5,000. They treat the 5,000. They dump it in the river, and it leaves here. They export 10,000 acre feet, and they call that best management practices. I find that unacceptable.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds obviously, I mean, exactly what you said, unacceptable. Yeah. You know, especially when you're wasting water, when we're in such a need in California, obviously, for water.
Well, when you're talking, all they ever talk about is where we're going to get supplemental water. We have it. We're not using it. Why don't they want to use it? That water from Nacimiento, for them to pay for their pipe, because they have to pay for 30 years. So I think they got about 14, 15 years left on the payment for the pipeline itself. But with all these repairs, this last repair they just finished, but they can't turn the water on yet, and it's where the pipe goes through part of the Santa Margarita Ranch. It started out at $60,000 to investigate it. It's close to $1.5 million now that they fixed it. So what did all these repairs cost? What are the total months that the pipe was actually open and or shut down? How come nobody that's part of the project is using all their water first before they're pumping groundwater, whether it's from the Atascadero Basin, the Paso Basin, or the Salinas River? Then we have the Salinas Reservoir that provides the recharge water from the Salinas River. Well, for 76 years, that water has been going to South County because of the Army Corps of Engineers let them piggyback on their permit. It was supposed to go to Camp San Luis, which never got completed. And so they're stealing our recharge water and not paying anything for it. So why should anybody in North County pay a extraction fee when our recharge water is in the homes in the city of San Luis?
John, let me ask you, why, when and why did you get involved?
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, property owner, you know, but how long did it take you to kind of like scratch your head and go, wait a minute, what is going on here?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was pretty much halfway through that town hall. You know, we had an opportunity to kind of go around to different stations, you know, that at the county and local agencies had put together to help educate property owners on what was coming and why, and what projects are working on. And, you know, red flags kind of went up immediately when you know, first of all, not getting a lot of clarity in terms of what exactly we were going to pay. So again, my purview is more from the residential side.
So you're kind of newer into this whole challenge.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so but then learning that, and there's been some discussion even last night, you know, someone that represents, again, I'm still trying to figure out the nuanced network of people that are working on this thing and where the money's going, which is astronomical sums of money. And what benefits we're getting out of this, and learning that, you know, so they use this 2 acre feet, you know, per year number as the de minimis user, right? Well, my property, we've got 7 acres. I use about 0.18 acre feet per year with my wife and my toddler and our 6 head of chicken.
Now, how do you know that if you don't have a meter?
It's a great question because my tank is broken, so I have to actually manually turn it on. So I actually know exactly how much we pump on our property.
Okay.
And the frequency that we're pulling. So and you know, our usage, I mean, 90% plus goes right back into the ground. I know that's not a one-for-one recharge, you know, I mean, I get all that, but the point being is that, you know, we're lumped together, at least all the information that's been communicated to property owners is that we're being lumped together in this average cost right? Because it's too expensive to put in meters, which we absolutely don't want them to put in meters either.
Which they just determined, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what it was too expensive to put meters in?
Exactly.
Okay.
So it doesn't seem that, at least right now, right? You know how this works, but at least right now, they're not pursuing that. Once an agency is created that can implement something like that for the basin at large, again, I mean, I'm only 42 or 43, but I have enough experience to know that, these things tend to be...
matter of time.
Exactly. So, looking at, so this is totally inequitable in terms of what I'm being asked to pay for something that there's no actual service being provided to my property. I'm the one that's responsible for my broken tank. It's the float switch. It's a little janky, but, and we're using this, this ballpark figure, which doesn't sit well with me, right? If I hear it's only $12 or it's only $16 one more time, my head's going to explode. I mean, for me, it's like
$12 a year or something like that.
Exactly,
right?
But if you came to me and stole my watch and then wanted to sell it back to me for $5 because it's not that much money, I'm not going to treat it any less offensive. It's just not right? And again, getting back to really the core foundational issues here. Water is public trust, right? It's a natural resource. I think people need the reminder that it's not that no one owns it, the public owns it. No government agency owns it, or should have the levels of control that they've begun to exercise. And this is the story as old as time, right? The battle for natural resources. I mean, there's sci-fi written about it. There's ample, examples in political theory on this dynamic between, natural resources and control. Just reminding people that, again, this is held in trust. The water that's below our property, we have first right of access to. If they're pulling from it and pulling it out and not replacing it, why are we being held responsible to pay for that? It's a very simple question, and I have yet to hear a great answer in terms of the legal basis for doing this. I mean, if you want to change the way that we think about private property, okay, we can have that discussion, but now you're talking about core changes to how our society functions.
Yeah, it's kind of like, oil, gold, whatever. You dig down,
Yep.
you discover it.
Yep.
That's yours. That's your right to that mineral, right?
Exactly.
So my question is, and again, I have no horses in the race here, and I'm really naive to what really what the big fight is, why there's one side and why there's another, really honestly.
Sure.
I kind of deal a lot in common sense is my main focus.
Knew we get
along. But so some people will argue, well, we want to know how much water you're using or you're using. That's what the reason of the meters are, right?
Right.
So
Great response for that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, you're spot on, right? So that's where we get into, like, is this an environmental or natural disaster or crisis, or is it not? If it is, then I have, again, I'm going to ask the obvious question. Again, I have no beef with ag whatsoever. I mean, my family works at ag. It's a great industry to have locally. Drives our economy. But if we're in an environmental crisis, as they say, I live 6 minutes from the 101 freeway. We moved in 2.5 years ago into our property. 3 new vineyards have been installed on what was previously dry ground, right? This is while the cooperative committee is working on creating a sustainable basin, right? So if there's a natural crisis or disaster, what steps are actually being taken to stop that? Versus, are we allowing something because it's beneficial to either one group or the county at large? Maybe there's a macro benefit here, right? And if there's a macro benefit, then why are you passing that cost along to individual property owners that live within the basin, right? So I think there's some really big questions that haven't been answered, and the irony for me is the folks that I have spoken to, that are in favor of this, and some that have worked on these projects, one of whom is probably commenting on this video right now, is you have this chat with them, and the answer is, well, we knew that, no one wants to charge the residential property owners, right? No one does. No one at the county, no one wants to charge them because they know that we will cause this to fail, right? That's because it's wrong. It's because it's not just, right? So, but they're still doing it because there's some legal requirement for them to do it. Change the law. Fix the problem. Don't pass along the problem to me or my neighbors, who are following the rules And I mean, again, like we barely use any of the dang stuff, underneath us. It's weird to me. Like everyone seems to acknowledge that this is wrong and that we're doing it because it's a state mandate. The same state that's done just a fabulous job managing water, is requiring this, right? So, I mean, let's ask those questions and get answers to them before we hand over
Don't
rights
put
and
the
control.
cart in front of the horse.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Right.
Here's so this is one of two notebooks, which is the actual groundwater plan that was approved by the state. This is the appendix, one of the appendices that has the agreement, the MOA that all of these agencies agreed to. This joint powers agreement, they want to replace this MOA. One of the main provisions of the MOA is everybody has to agree to get rid of this or it can't go away. Anybody can withdraw and take themselves out, and within 30 days in writing, then they're not part of this no more. But they can't make it go away unless all the parties want it to go away, which they don't. So they got a legal problem right there. In this plan, they're not following the plan that was approved. There's a section 9 of this plan gives you your projects and what you're supposed to do. So the first main project that they understand, that they know in here, is that the affected areas that have the areas where they know the groundwater has fallen a little bit, those are the areas where pumping has to be reduced. Well, I can specifically tell you that those areas are surrounded by vineyards. So the parcels that were allowed to develop within that area developed before irrigated ag came in around them. It was dry farmed and cattle was around there. And then when they came in and put in their deep wells, these guys were allowed to have shallow wells at that time. That's the main problem, is the shallow well issue. When the shallow wells started being reported, then everything kind of started. This was always a medium basin, at the very low end of medium, and the way they measured it. Overnight, because of the emergency ordinance and because of the quiet title lawsuit, they decided to make us a high priority basin to make themselves look good in court, even though they lost. So going back to what my compadre said here, when they made the emergency ordinance, there's these invisible lines out there. Where's the Paso Basin end? Where does the Atascadero Basin begin? If you're not in the Paso Basin where the 1-to-1 moratorium is, then you can plant whatever you want to plant outside of that boundary. So people moved and bought property that wanted to do these things, and they went to those other areas where they would have never went to, and started overproducing in those areas. Why is 10% of the crop left hanging to irrigate? You irrigate it all year, and then you let it hang because you can't sell it. And you call that best management practices? I know the guy that he was talking about. I'm not going to mention his name, but he's a subsidy farmer. He's made his living out of getting subsidies and being paid for not farming. He's a welfare farmer. I'm sorry, I don't know anybody.
So that's real, Greg?
Yeah, I don't know anybody else that gets paid subsidies for not working. Oh, yeah, I do, the unemployment or welfare. But anyway, this plan tells you you're going to have to, for this plan to work, there's going to have to be a reduction in pumping in certain areas. One of the main first things, stormwater capture. We've been hollering for 10 years for stormwater capture. Easy, free water. All you're doing is slowing it up so it has more time to absorb into the basin. No.
Wasn't for the longest time that illegal to capture your own water?
Yes, another big issue.
Yeah. Well, in 2012, they finally decided it's okay if you could catch the rain off your roof. Number 3, we have over 60 ag ponds that are 50 acres foot. They're filled constantly, and they have membranes so they don't leak. Okay. They don't have any covers. So they lose a lot of water from evaporation. What's the temperature here from June, July until through September into October? October when the Santa Anas start, when the fires come. So if they covered their ponds, they would reduce all of that evaporation by 98%. I'm just telling you all the easy things. If Paso used their Nasi water like we talked about, and then they haven't even used the most current a study that was done in 2018, because if you don't have a problem, these guys can't take over. They can't manipulate the thing. Why do you have agencies coming here that are corporate? They're not interested in the grapes. The grapes is a cover crop to be in charge of the water. Once you get in charge of the water and you're in charge of the food, you're in charge of the land use, everything on your property. Why is it called private property if they're in charge of everything on it? You have the beneficial right to use the water beneath your land on your land. You don't have the right to transfer it, exchange it, sell it.
So you can't sell the water under your land, but you can use it for your own consumption.
Correct. For anything on your property.
Okay.
That's the beneficial right. As far as this meter thing, it also says in this plan, you will not meter de minimis users. They're not a problem. In the new annual report that just came out, so the annual report comes out, it's due April 1st. Why do they put it out in the middle of March? Because they don't want you to have enough time to look at it, to comment on it before it's due. So, and one of the things in there, it divides up the acreage. I was talking about this the other day, and somebody said, oh, well, I changed my crop from alfalfa to grapes. That's fine. Like I said, the ordinance says 1-to-1. Whatever you put in has to equal the same amount of water as what you took out. So when I look at a chart in there and I see that...
Meaning usable water that you're using for growth or whatever.
If you were allowed at the time, because the planning ordinance kind of changed up, but if you were allowed at the time that you had, let's say, 100 acres of alfalfa. Alfalfa has a water duty factor of 4.5 acre feet per acre a year. So 450 acre feet of water you would use in a year. Whatever you change your crop to, if you have the right amount of space, you can put in, if you're going to put in a crop that uses 1 acre foot, now you can put in 450 acres at 1 acre foot when you had 100 acres at the 4.5. So it doesn't matter what the crop is as much as, because I look at the crops and the water duty factor and say, well, how can they use more water? How come grapes now are using, in this new report, 1.7 acre feet when they're supposed to be using 1.2? Actually, they can use 1 or less. But that right there, that 0.5, over 40,000 acres, that's 20,000 acre feet more of water.
Did you find out the reason?
Well, I know the reason, because they don't care what they're irrigating. They want to over-irrigate to get a historic use so they can claim a certain amount, which historic use is not a legal term. It's your beneficial right, your correlative right. Your correlative right is I get an equal share with my neighbor gets an equal share. If I have 100 acres, I get so much per acre. If he has 1 acre, he gets that same amount for his acre that I get for each of my 1 acres. But they don't want that. They want you. They'll say, hey, well, Randy over here is not using any, so I'm going to use what he's not using. Well, no, you don't get to do that once it's been.
So, Greg,
decided.
let me ask you a question. You know, from an outsider looking in, why is that not a good thing? You know, and I go back to the meter, which is kind of what the fight is for, the metering and, you know, your use, you know, everybody's use. Wouldn't you want, or wouldn't it be beneficial to know that, you know, Greg, you're using your rightful take, John, same thing, or, you know, maybe John's going crazy and, you know, has an operation that nobody knows about. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, you know, again, wasn't that a good thing?
So 1 acre foot of water is 326,000 gallons. And the state decided that 2 acre foot a year would be a de minimis user. Most places use less than a half acre foot. So they're using half of that 326. But if you were to use the 326 times 2, so let's just call it 652, you'd have to use 1,800 gallons of water a day, you and whoever, at your place. That just doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's so to measure a guy.
Unless you got a leak or something, right?
Right. Well, and you would know that. You would know that. You would know that from your power bill. So when you're paying for your own power, and you know the size of your tank, And you can calculate just from that what your actual use is. The meters were made for billing reasons, not for monitoring. If you know that your pump produces so much, everybody doesn't have to. If you're smart, you would. When you buy a piece of property and it has a well, you do a pump test. They do a 4-hour pump test, and they document where your water is when it's static, where it is when it's pumping. After 4 hours, how long does it take to recover? And then you'll know, hey, I ran it for 4 hours. I had 10 gallons a minute the whole 4 hours, or I had 15 gallons a minute for the first hour, and then for the next 3 hours, I had 10 gallons a minute. And then you'll know. Why would you run it for the second, third, and fourth hour if it dropped 5 gallons when you could run it for an hour at a time and set your timer to do all your stuff? Most people have a float switch, and the float switch will keep it full, so it's like the back of your toilet tank. So you're not going to use very much before the tank tells itself to fill back up. So you're always at that maximum amount where your recovery won't take very long because you're not pumping very much, and your tank is always full. And 2/3 of that tank should be for your fire protection besides your water use.
John, let me ask you a question. So you're obviously new to the game.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ran across any neighbors, not to mention any names, but
Yeah.
that are for the meters and for the project?
Not a one.
So not
That is-
one person.
That is no joke. And that's, again, one of the concerns. I came up with a great analogy. I was talking to my wife yesterday about this. It's a great policy, and I'm great in quotes, right? When, normally something requires the consent of the governed, right? Like that's where, like having a 2/3 majority to pass a new fee, right? Okay, we know that this needs to happen. We're all inspired. This is going to fix a problem. The community is going to rile up and approve. We're going to give that consent to the governed, right? This requires the complete apathy of the governed, right? It requires the majority of residential homeowners on the basin to ignore the issue for it to pass. That's a great policy, right? When that's how it's gonna go, right? So again, everyone that I've spoken to, I'll use my block as an example. We spread the word. Like most people are kind of blindsided by that this is actually coming. Wait, what?
Are there still people out there that really has no idea what's
100%,
going on?
100%. Yeah,
Really?
and again, that's my goal. Really, that's ultimately my goal. Is the people that know about it obviously are kind of tuned into it, and again, Greg here has done a wonderful job of trying to learn the issue over a decade plus. But John Q. homeowner like myself, I tend to be a little bit more politically active and charged, and my toddler's actually gone to 2 of these meetings because I want her to learn the process, and also to know the faces, right? Who's making these decisions on our behalf. Most don't have the time or alertness in the wee hours of the morning to dig in on this stuff.
It sounds like there's so many different fingers. There's so many different things, obviously we know, government, when they try to, elections, you get, a page like this for one proposition. It's like, really? What all does that mean?
Yeah. There's a political term for that. It's called rational ignorance, right? Which is the reality is that in many cases, it's the more rational approach is to be ignorant of the issue, because the amount of impact that you have as a single voter doesn't equate to the amount of time it's going to take you to educate yourself on the topic. So that's why a lot of people are discouraged about voting for that reason, right? It's because in many ways they're more rational. Their time is worth more elsewhere, right? This is one of those times where we need everyone to educate themselves on what's coming, and it's going to be a protest vote only. This is not an affirmative consent. This is, you have to tell your local officials that this is not okay.
But didn't you guys just do that? Wasn't there just a meeting here recently in the last, right before you came on the last time, right? Wasn't there something?
No. So what's going on right now is each individual groundwater agency, so you have 5 agencies. You have Paso, San Miguel, the county, and then you have the San Juan district and the EPC district. But real fast before I carry on with that, the 2 fake water districts, San Juan and EPC, they don't want meters. They opted to use what's called ET, evapotranspiration. So they hired a company using grant money. They didn't use their money. They're measuring their stuff using grant money that we all paid for. So, and everything on that plan and everything they've been doing has been funded by the state and grant money. They haven't reached in their pockets hardly at all. So they don't want meters. They want to use this. So it's measuring the evaporation of the plant and the soil in the field. But it doesn't tell you the rest of the equation. It doesn't tell you what they're pumping to put into the ag pond or what's evaporating off of the ag pond before they apply it to the crop. It's just telling you what's leaving the crop and the soil around the crop. So to verify if the ET was correct, you would at least have to meter a certain percentage of the fields that you're checking with the evapotranspiration to see how reliable it was. How close are you on, if you say that, well, this field is using 1.5 acre feet per acre, why don't we verify that with a meter for a certain period of time? So they don't want it on their big ag stuff, and in this new report, they're 95% of the use.
Yeah.
So are you going to measure?
That's an important number.
Are you going to measure the 3% of the use,
Yeah.
or the 95% of the use?
Exactly.
To find the problem or the leak. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be. I don't know if I told you this once. So I was a fireman for LA City for 30 years. And one of the things I learned right away was there's people that want to do things the hard way and there's people who want to do things the easy way. People get excited and they think what they're doing is right. We would have guys that would pull out their axe or walk up to a door and there's a fire behind the door and they'd start chopping or try to kick the door down. I would walk up to the door and turn the doorknob. You do the easy thing first.
Right.
Exactly.
You don't do the hard thing first. If you're checking something,
Yeah, but the axe looks so much cooler.
well, you can get it out and scare the door, but all you gotta do is turn the knob. I mean, that's just a simple thing. So, if you're looking for a problem, if the basin as a whole is supposed to be in a chronic problem that's not rebounding, for it to be considered in a condition of overdraft. We do not have chronic lowering throughout 436,000 acres. We have spotty areas of a little bit of decline, and we know that there's some decline there because of the shallow wells that were replaced. So you have, if the wells in a certain area were 250 feet deep, and there's 6 or 7 of them on a block, and it's surrounded by a vineyard that pumps all night and has 4 ag ponds that it's constantly filling that are 200,000 acre feet. To me, it's not really hard to figure out who's creating the interference and the problem. Okay, so what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
So those 7 or 8 people had to pay $80,000 to get a new well. Now they're at 700 or 800 feet, like the vineyard is. Now they no longer have the problem, other than the fact that they had to spend
To go deeper.
thousands
to
of
get to more water.
dollars to go deeper to compete. If you're going to have a straw in a Dixie cup, you don't want the shortest straw.
Right. But that's what I'm saying, Greg, isn't it more like as a landowner, residential, not commercial, not grapes, not alfalfa or whatever, isn't it beneficial to know what your wineries next door and if they're overtaking?
Well, I don't think you having a meter, you're going to know that from your well elevation. So I think what would be more beneficial, I was on a committee for the county, for Blaine Reilly, called the Technical Advisory Committee for Expanded Well Monitoring. So right off the bat, when we formed it, we had our first meetings. We never had any issues with the people that are on it. Out of 3 different groups and 24 people, there was only 4 what I call civilians that weren't somehow connected financially or paid to be there, and I was one of them. And so we identified right away the 4 areas where the shallow well problems were. This is where you need to do the monitoring. So they have grant money to buy the monitoring systems, And all they needed to do was give it to these people. Have people volunteer. We will give you the equipment if you'll give us the information. But they wanted to make a 5-page. Now here we are, almost 3 years later. They got 2 units in out of 150 that we identified. They're going to lose the rest of the money by the end of April if they don't spend the grant money. They don't have time to do it. They don't have approval. So Rita Neal, the county council, makes up a 5-page document for you to sign that everybody's scared of. What am I signing? Unless I could take it to my attorney. And to give them access. And the equipment still belongs to them even though they didn't pay for it. It's grant money that comes from the taxpayer. And now, why would you give them your access to anything when they are going to tell you they want to tax you on extraction? But if you were to have that equipment, buy your own, it's not very expensive. That right there will tell you if when your water's fluctuating because of what's going on in the area, or what's just happening. We don't even know what happens if you had an earthquake again. Water came out of the parking lot at the library. They couldn't get rid of that sulfur water in the library. They had
For years.
They plumbed it to the river.
Right.
It's still running, so they could fill the hole. Okay, so we have issues with the ground. And earlier, somebody was talking about the aeromagnetic helicopter that was flying over, measuring the density of the earth here in a grid pattern over the basin to come up with how water, hopefully figure out how water flows through the basin. Because the basin's not just one big giant swimming pool. There's a series of pools and ponds, and as we get water and we get recharged, they overflow into the next one and the next one and the next one. And again, I think I said this last time, 436,000 acres. Our normal rain in Paso is 14 inches. At mine, it's a lot more. But I'm going to call everything equal, and we'll just say it's 12. 12 inches over an acre is 1 acre foot of water. 1 acre foot of water over 436,000 acres is 436,000 acre feet of water. This is why stormwater capture is so important. That's what recharges the basin. We use 80 acre feet or 80,000 acre feet, and in a normal year, you're going to get over 436,000 acre feet. I don't think it's real hard to recharge the basin, and I think it's more productive to have people. I want farming to continue, just like you said, but when I look at the farming and these guys want to say, well, look at how much we're contributing to the economy and to everything in our area. Okay, but what is it costing us? What is the cost associated with these benefits? And are we just trading one for the other? Or did we create a whole new problem because we were so greedy on this other side? And I don't have profit sharing in those vineyards. So if you want to give me profit sharing for the problems you're causing,
That would be helpful.
yeah.
Well, if I can follow on that too, I mean, I think that's another important fundamental point, right? Is water being commoditized through this whole deal? And the absolute answer is yes, right? In that, I think it's important for people to understand. In fact, the loudest voices in the room on this whole debate are the consultants that are working on it, are the political agencies and their personnel that rely on this going through. Going back to your discussion on the timing of this vote and everything, the reality is that the middle of this year the funding runs out, right? The state said this is the end. We're not going to issue grant money to continue the monitoring and everything else, right? So we have to find another alternative source of funding. This is what was clarified at the town hall. So that's the red flag, right? We've created a new economy based on water from people that aren't direct stakeholders. Incomes rely on it, business profits rely on it. Not a problem. I'm not trying to criticize, please, let me clarify. I'm not criticizing anyone that's working tirelessly on trying to fix this thing. If there is a problem, that's not my intent. But my point is understand that we are creating a new commodity that, again, the people that live directly over it aren't benefiting from.
Now, John, you seem like a deep thinker.
Ugh.
So,
yeah, my wife would agree with that too. Yeah, unfortunately.
but have you ever came across somebody on the opposing side to where you sound like you would listen, and try to understand the reasoning, of why. Have you ever scratched your head and went, okay, well, that makes kind of sense.
Well, no, I mean, I've made every effort to do that. The only real answer that it can get, that it does make sense from a legal perspective, if that's like the extent of your concern, is how Prop 218 factors into all this, right? Everyone acknowledges that the only reason why the residential property owners are being dragged into this is because there's some legal requirement under Prop 18 or 218. That's just like, to me, that's like, well, we got to follow the rules because that's the rule. I mean, okay, I get it. Like that's the rule, but maybe we need to reevaluate the rule here, right? And how Prop 218 is even being applied. I'm not firmly convinced, and I'm not a lawyer, full disclosure, but I'm not firmly convinced that how they're applying Prop 218 is, again, to the benefit of the public and why Prop 218 was passed.
Do you think they're getting strong-armed into it?
Oh, absolutely. The state, but okay, so, I mean, we've all been up here long enough to understand that threat of the state, right? Well, if we don't do this, then the state's going to get involved and do X, Y, and Z. And if we don't approve this, then the state's going to do X, Y, and Z. I have been involved in enough local political battles to hear that it's one of those constants, right? It's like, well, if we don't do this, then the state's going to make it worse.
So right there, the state said, we're going to do Sigma. The state said, you're going to have to form GSAs. Mm-hmm. The state said, you're going to do a GSP, and hey, we're going to give you the money to do it. The state said, we're going to approve the GSP, and once we approve it, you're going to do it. You're going to do an annual report to tell us what's going on in the basin, and you're going to do a 5-year update on, are you following what we approved? Well, I can tell you they're not following in order what they approved, but everything has been paid for. So all these guys are crying that the state's coming. The state's been here the whole time. The state's been I have all the documents to show how much money they had received since 2000 in this basin on projects that the state says, hey, if you'll do this, we'll give you a bunch of money. And we already pay the county for flood control water conservation district. It comes out of our taxes on our property bills. They are the GSA for the county. We haven't had a GSA county meeting in over 2 years since Bruce Gibson took over. So they haven't done any outreach or actually informed the constituents that live over the basin that are under the control of the county. The city of Paso, I think I said this last time, has a boundary, and they're a water district. That's their boundary. The CSD of San Miguel has a boundary. And they're a water district. These two other water districts have their members, and those are their water districts. The county is our land use authority, but they're not our water district. We don't have I'm my own water district. I pay for my system, I manage my system, I put in my infrastructure, I fix my infrastructure, I pay for the permits to put all that infrastructure and that in. It's raised every 2 years with my property taxes by the Prop 13, by 2% every year, every time they send out a property tax bill. And this new tax that they want to claim as a fee, it's coming on my property tax bill. A fee is something, if I join a club, here's the fee to join the club. I'm not joining this club. This is a tax, and everything on my tax bill is a tax of some kind of a bond. Yeah. I pay for state water, everybody does. Have you ever gotten the benefit of state water? I don't have a turnout on my place where I get state water. Why isn't the county that spent $1 million in Shannon for a turnout? The first 3 years after that turnout was put in 2016. So 2017, 2018, and 2019, they used 40 feet, 50 feet, and then 40-something feet. So they used like 140 feet in 3 years, and in the last 5 or 6 years, they haven't used 1 ounce of water out of there. So they've wasted that 100 acre feet of water that was available to them.
John,
yeah.
When we're talking landowners, like in your shoe, not wineries and stuff like that, how many landowners, residents are we talking that this affects?
I believe it's about, what is it, 8,000?
Close.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, so actually, to go back to the 218 discussion, where I think there's a big issue is, and there's a great video, the Howard Jarvis Tax Foundation. I recommend all the viewers, again, don't take my word for any of this. I'm not an attorney, but they did a great wrap up on why 218 was passed by the voters, right? That was a voter-driven proposition to amend the state constitution, because what was happening, Proposition 13 was passed to protect property owners from excessive increases on the taxes on their property, right? Great. In spirit, this is fantastic. Local governments figured out that they could use fees and use special assessments and these kinds of things to backdoor that, right? So that they could go in excess of that 2% increase by charging these special fees. So the voters went back, this is, several years later, went back and put 218 in place, which amended the Constitution to say that no, you can't charge fees without having 2/3 majority of the people that are directly affected. This is not a statewide vote or anything like that. This is the people that are going to be assessed the new fee on their property taxes. 2/3 of them have to affirmatively vote this, approve this, right? So the way that again, take this with a grain of salt. I do encourage everyone to research this, but the way that it's being applied in this case is, well, there's a carve out for water, trash, and sewage, right? Because those are considered like core services that we cannot wait for approvals, because the whole city relies on these things, right? Like if trash starts piling up, we have a health crisis. If sewage, the same, right? The problem is that all three of those, as again, you have to look at the spirit of the rule, right? The spirit of the proposition was, these are utilities that are provided. There's services, there's labor, there's infrastructure. Someone is collecting your trash. Someone is putting in pipes that deliver the water to your property. Someone is cleaning the wastewater before it gets reabsorbed. Someone is providing a service with those. Those three are very clearly defined as services. The groundwater underneath my property, I'm not receiving any service. In fact, they self-acknowledge that the only things that my money will be going towards with this new JPA and what they're planning is for ongoing studies and what they call management. But again, I don't really tend to, I think they're doing the greatest job of managing it. Again, if we're in a crisis and we're not actually, directly addressing the 94 to 96% of what's causing that crisis, if there is a crisis. Again, that's another thing that I'll leave out in the open.
Okay, so I'm going to fast forward to a couple weeks ago, which we had the meeting, or there was a town hall, or is it, whatever you call that. I thought it was the vote thing, but it was the city council voted, and I'm not sure what it is, in which I will ask. But they was voted 4-1.
They were voting to sign the new agreement, the new joint powers agreement in place of the MOA.
Okay.
So
the GPA,
every
JPA?
agency. So the first agency that said that they wanted to do this was back in January. I think January 16th at Paso Basin Cooperative Committee. The Shannon San Juan District always has their meetings. Hours before that, they voted to join the joint powers. Next agency was the county. Next agency was EPC, and then the next agency was San Juan or San Miguel. But San Miguel said, "Hey, we don't have enough information. We're not joining this right now." Then they said, "We'll see what Paso does." Then Paso did it. Okay, let's go back to the first.
So
guy.
each of the cities all voted on
Each of the agencies had to do their own meeting and whatever. The one that the San Juan signed is not the one that the county signed. It is not the one, because it's been altered 4 or 5 times. The county, in fact, we just filed a Brown Act violation against them, because the one they had in the agenda is not the one they signed, and the one they signed is not the one that's the most current copy. So you can't have a document that the people don't get to review, and then you sign it. That's illegal. So whenever they want to do something illegal, like John was just saying about the 218 and the service and what you're doing, the people that are pushing this are the attorney for the county, the attorney for the city, and the attorney for the 2 water districts. The attorney for San Miguel isn't. But 3 of those attorney firms, San Miguel, Paso, and the county, and the one attorney that works for both of these other guys, they're the ones that put this joint powers agreement together. 3 of those attorneys are the attorneys that are suing the defendants in the quiet title, or the us in the quiet title action. They're the defendants' lawyers. So here they are in court with the same people who live over the basin. Now they're trying to backdoor us with some kind of a new rule to assess us when we're in trial with them, and we have been for the last 11 years. So we've won 4 trials, a stipulated agreement, or 5 trials, stipulated agreement, and we're waiting for the 6th trial. And that'll be the last trial. We've won everything. And the law is not on their side. The cities, the CSDs, and the county are appropriators. All the landowners are overliers. Overliers have the priority right. They get to drive in the front seat. Appropriators are in the back seat. They're supposed to use their other sources if there's a problem. So they're claiming there's a problem, but they don't want to follow the law. But they want to tell you why you need a 218. Oh, because it says we have to. Well, the water code says we don't have to. Is this a water code issue, or is this a voting issue? I think if you're going to say it's about water over the basin, it's a water code issue. So that's the whole. Everybody's, oh, well, we don't want to charge these poor people. And then they don't understand the people in Paso and like San Miguel. It's going to be a pass-through. If either one of those agencies has to pay for their pumped water from the basin for their city wells or the CSD wells, they're going to pass it on to the meters. Your rates are going to go up one way or the other. If you have something delivered and it costs more for fuel, they're going to add that to the cost of whatever it takes. They're not going to eat it. So any big business can write off their expenses and add it to the cost of doing business. Private landowner can't do that. He can't. What's he going to do? He's just going to pay more. And if we're already paying the county for the flood control district, why are we going to pay again for something that they give no management for? And are they going to take over fixing your well or paying for anything?
Yeah, and that's another key point, of 218. The provisions that the voters passed, require that there be an immediate benefit to the property owner, right? So if I have, first of all, my opinion, it's supposed to require my consent to do. They're not going to apply that here. So so we have the opportunity to protest it. Say that that we fail and protest, which to me sounds like we need several thousand property owners to actually take action, not be apathetic and sit idly by. But if this goes through, a requirement of 218 is that it provides immediate benefit to my property. That is a hard and fast requirement of the law. No amount of management and reporting, the management that they've done so far, provides immediate benefit to my property. This is not a group thing. This is not like, our block or our water district. This is my specific property has to receive an immediate benefit from the fee. My well is not dry. I don't get any compensation for any activity related to it. Where is the immediate benefit to the people who are either approving or allowing this to go forward? So again, I don't think that this is as clear cut as, and again, I'll go back to, like I work in aviation, right? Like if someone comes to me and says, hey, I need to get to LA, I'm not going to recommend that they take a train, right? So a city attorney or a consultant that's working with municipal water, or even elected officials that are working alongside city staff on these decisions, I don't expect them to take a different route than this is the way that we can do this, right? Maybe we need to think outside the box here, or pump the brakes. Maybe the state threat is real. That they come in and they're going to require that everyone put meters on, and they're going to require that we start paying fees and all that. I trust the law and the process enough to take that risk, right? Because first of all, I've heard that dropped again, and in my early 40s, as long as I've been involved in local politics, I've seen that dropped or heard it dropped, dozens of times, and it doesn't really pan out because there are safeguards against abuse, even at the state level.
But it's funny that you said that, because you mentioned earlier, $12, $19, $16, whatever it is, it's only a little bit. But if you look back in the 1800s, when government started saying, hey, we're going to tax you on this, we're going to tax you, it's for the benefit of you. Now look at us.
Yeah.
Right? There's no going back.
Yeah.
There's no them going, okay, guys, we've already tried this for a year or two, whatever. We're gonna take this out. We're done. Thanks for coming, type deal.
Yeah.
It's only gonna get
That's exactly right.
more and more and more and more.
That is a fact. And again, that's why I love our government. If you can't tell, I just love America, right? Like it was so beautifully constructed in that we have the power to I don't even want to, like, everyone makes it sound like it's this evil thing, like protesting a vote and, voting against something. It's like, you're an evil person. It's like, no, this is the process, right? I just need people that are watching we created the PasoWater.com resource really just to get contact information to ensure, I'm not trying to change people's vote on anything. Well, I am. I mean, I'm certainly speaking out against it. But you have the right, to protest or not. If you think that this is a great thing, go for it. It's not even apathy at that point. You've made the decision to allow this to go forward. Great. But we need thousands of people to stop what's coming. Thousands of people that live on the basin, the direct stakeholders, not the people that are outside the county, not South County. We need thousands of residents on the basin to actually take the action of protesting this.
So what they did in the last one, they're trying to back end.
You're talking about a couple weeks ago.
No.
Oh.
We'll get to that in a second. But the Assembly Bill AB 2453 that was done in 2016, that was a proposed special water district over the basin with a 9-person board, and they came up with all these gizmos, and they got our Assembly person, Mr. Akachian, to back it. He ended up actually losing his next election because of that. We had 700 to 800 people quit the Farm Bureau because of that. And but that particular thing was a special election. The county spent $1 million, and these other two water districts, they weren't who they are now. They were known as Prags. They had $500,000, and we had 20 grand and 10 guys, and we put up our signs and did our advertisement, did our stuff, and we won by almost 80%. That was a yes or no vote on, do you want to be a district, and do you want to tax yourself? If the tax didn't pass, it didn't matter if the district passed because they didn't have the funding. This thing is, they're not asking you if you want to be a JPA. They're asking their individual groups, hey, do we want to be JPAs? And if they say yes or no. So if let's just say they all say yes. Okay, now they have to figure out a way to fund it. So now this is where the tax comes in.
The fee.
And
right.
and the only way, and so instead of having a yes or no vote, everybody's a yes unless you protest.
Yeah.
So if you're not paying attention,
and it just gets
or
passed by,
or you decide, oh, I don't even know what's going on.
Yeah.
So they made it by using this process. If you're not attuned to what's happening and saying, hey, no, I don't want to fund that. That's what we're saying. Yeah. We don't want to fund this organization okay, they can claim whatever they want to claim. I can show you, like the FBI, I can put all their pictures and the strings and how they're all connected, and they've been the same guys for over 20 years trying to run everything here while they've been kicking the can down the road. This is the biggest Trojan horse. I'm a duck hunter. We use decoys. That's what this is.
Well, let me really stoke the flames here, because so again, no taxation without representation, right? So you have this JPA that's being formed, requires the consent of multiple agencies and cities to form the county, which is where I live. In the county managed, if you will, property on the basin. The county voted, to hand over that power to the JPA, which I love that the word power is in the JPA. They handed it over, right? By a majority vote of 3-2, all three of whom have no constituents on the basin. So the approval to join the JPA on my behalf was passed by 3 supervisors that have no representation on the basin.
Wow.
I mean, that's critical here. I hope everyone understands the significance of that.
And the one lead guy gave away half the vote.
Yeah.
So we had a 61% of the vote on what happened over the basin when the county was in charge. When Bruce Gibson removed Debbie Arnold and John Pashong and took over and put Blaine Reilly as his alternate, which he's a paid employee, there's no legal way that he should have been an alternate because he was just a proxy vote. Well, then he gave away half of the voting power of the constituents over the county that own a majority of the land, and they're the largest population, to an agency that legally couldn't join the MOA. You have to have 100% of the people in it to allow a new member to join. San Miguel said no. They let them come in anyway. They went against their own agreement because that's what Supervisor Gibson wanted, the bad Bruce. And then, and they had signed documents with the local formation agency called LAFCO that they could never join this MOA and that they could never be part of the cooperative committee if they wanted to stay a water district. And they're not legally formed anyway. And when I went to all those meetings, when all that stuff was happening, and they told me, well, it's too late now, we already did it. Well, you already broke the law and it's never too late. And their whole concept was, well, I'd have to sue them if I wanted them to undo it, because they know that they were wrong. But, so they gave away half of our voting power. They haven't had any meetings in 2 years. By the way, why did he let that agency in, and why would you give away half of the power? And those two groups gave him over $52,000 in his last election. And then he made one of the other guys the chairperson on the committee. The joint powers agreement, if any agency doesn't want to do nothing, they don't have to agree to it. This is not, you have a...
Would you say the San Miguel didn't agree?
Right. But what I mean is, like, if you don't want to help on a certain part of the projects, the only things you have to fund in this as a group are certain particular things, like the annual report and the 5-year update on what are you doing what we asked you to do. But some of the other stuff you don't have to participate in. If you really want a binding agreement, it's a MOU, a memorandum of understanding, where everybody understands that the cost is going to be an equal cost, that all the things are going to be agreed upon equally. The way that this thing works in the cooperative group is not really cooperative. Each agency has their own ideas about what they want for their individual area. There's 62 LLCs and or people in the San Juan district. There's 160 property owners in the EPC district. Half of them don't live here, and half of them don't. Most of them don't live in the other thing. So how is it that those 250 people at the most, or 240, should trump by voting power the other 6,500 people that live over the basin? I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Did you guys have a good, like in this last meeting, was there a good turnout of landowners?
At the Paso?
At
the Paso City meeting, there was people sitting on the floor, all the chairs were full, standing everywhere. In fact, I was bringing people in, they were standing outside, they were looking around. I said, no, come on in. I was figuring, hey, maybe we'll get an overcrowding and they'll cancel this thing. They opened the back doors, they had all the doors open.
Did people get to talk?
Yeah, you got your 3 minutes, and then they wanted to play some games at the end, and they didn't like it. So there was 3 speakers, 4 at the most, that wanted the city to join the JPA. 2 of those speakers were Jerry Ray and Hillary Graves, that sit on the board of the EPC Water Board. And then
they're not landowners.
Jerry sold his place. He had 70 acres in a vineyard a long time ago, and he sold that. So other than both those people being some kind of paid consultant or working for somebody else, they don't really have an issue. And just as disclosure, yeah, I own a place and I'm in the watershed, so I'm outside of the basin. But I'm fighting for my neighbors. I don't think what they're doing is fair, and I don't think what these other guys are doing, they know what they're doing. And I don't believe that a representative of Harvard and or a pension fund out of Montreal, Canada, should be sitting on a water board in Shandon and making decisions for these agencies that have nothing to do as a neighbor or anything in our area. If something goes south, they're going to sell their investment and leave. They're just milking the cow for all they can get, and then it doesn't matter. What happened in the Owens Valley when all the ranchers around over there, when Mono Lake went dry because they bought up all the good properties and sucked all the water out and sent it to LA? They came here because we have 31 to 36 million acre feet of water in this basin. We're the largest basin on this part
So
of
this is liquid gold?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So John, what's next? So, we just had a meeting. This is far from being done and over with,
Yeah.
right? So what is the next step? What is the next step into getting all these 8,000 residents, landowners in the know of whether, for or against?
Yeah.
Because what's next?
So, just working with other stakeholders, I've met a lot of people over the last, especially over the last month, that are like with the signage, putting signage out over, all over North County to educate people. For me, it's really about getting contact information because, again, I don't like to deal in the world of conspiracy theories, but the town hall flyer, I think I was the only person on our block that actually received it. It's certainly possible that that was thrown away by others, but I do know I was the only one that received it and confirmed that they had received it. So
Now you're talking a mailer.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
The mailer. I'm sorry. Yeah, the mailer, which was legally required as part of the notification for that
God,
public
it's such
meeting.
a prehistoric way.
It really is. And
It's-
that's exactly right. Yes.
I mean,
So
we
you
get
it.
trash and it just goes in the trash can.
Yeah, you totally get it. So that's why for me it's really about driving as many people to the PasoWater.com resource, just because we are getting mailing addresses if you're willing to provide it. Absolutely, your email address. If you're willing to put signage on your property, we're going to be making more signage that has the URL on there, just to put give it the old college try at stopping this. And I would say at a minimum, if it's not successful, what I really hope comes out of this is that everyone who's making these decisions on our behalf understand that that the residents are getting. We're not getting a great deal in this, and I think they need to get a little bit more creative in how they approach this problem. That doesn't drag us into really making the groundwater sustainable for commercial ventures. It's not my responsibility.
When does this come to fruition? Like when is like the hard next? Like this is now it's law.
So they were trying to push this at warp speed so that they could get it on the next tax roll. So they needed everything done, I think, by June 1st to get it on the tax roll of July 1st. So that means they have to have everybody agree to one final JPA agreement. And then from that, they have to write up the proposal. They have to finish a rate study. The rate study tells them what they're providing and what they're going to charge for different kinds of water per acre foot, whether it's ag water or commercial water or residential water. And then they would have to print that on a thing and mail it to all the affected people. So it's an extraction fee. So if you don't own property with a well, I guess you wouldn't get one. I don't know, because you're not making an extraction. What's the golf course going to get in Paso? What's Vina Robles going to get? What's the fairgrounds going to get? What's each of the hotel rooms going to get? It goes on and on and on. They think they're not affected. At the same time, they want people to fallow land and use less and pay extra fees. They keep expanding the city without using their other resources. This is the main problem. They don't want to spend the money. I don't know if I said this earlier. For them to clean the Nasi water and use it, that costs them about $2,500 to $3,000 an acre foot. To pump an acre foot of water from the basin is $300 an acre foot. Now you know why they don't want to use their Nasi Meadow water.
Yeah, we'll pay to make sure it's there for them.
Yeah,
but essentially what that comes down to.
But they're paying for their pipeline a monthly fee for that $2 million pipe they put in, and the repairs and other stuff. So one of these projects that they did, the county got a $7.6 million grant. They gave $3.5 million of that to Paso for this blended water treated sewer project, to put a pipe from the sewer plant under the river, under River Road, and up this hill to some given point. At the same time that nobody's talked about or nobody even knows really, the city got a grant from the DWR for the same project for $9.7 million. And then there's been some other monies given. So they have almost $15 million that they've spent on this project that they're not going to use, that now is basically in the dirt or in the toilet.
That's a lot of deep. That's a lot of deeper wells.
Yeah, they're deciding that there's an issue with the treated water, and that they didn't even know. They hadn't even come up with a price for what they would charge for the Nasi water. And there's been so many problems with the Nasi pipeline. So if you buy Nasi water, if they were to sell you some, do you pay for part of these repairs on top of that? And then when do you get it? When do you need it? Well, they need it in the summertime. Well, that's when they would need it. Well, there's capacity loss in the pipe, so they can't even deliver. There's no infrastructure for this blended water project, and the drawings they came up with, that infrastructure would cost $81 million. This is why those conceptual projects were supposed to be in the future after you got all these really easy, low-hanging fruit things done, like stormwater capture, cover your ponds, use your Nasi, so on and forth. Those cost very little. And we're really, so why did we waste all this grant money on these pipe dreams instead of doing what we needed to do? And then go back to the same consultants from years later and repeat studies that we already had.
Wow.
Yeah.
You need a beer now, huh?
Jeez.
Yeah. What time is it?
Well, I mean, Greg, I mean, you got, I mean, but so why, I mean, this is a question because, you know, people have messaged us, you know, from the last one that, I mean, why do people want to hush you? Why do people want to silence you guys? I mean, is it knowledge the power? Is it knowledge power? Whether you choose to use it or not use it. But I mean, why?
So, I mean, I think this is where we may differ. You know, he's obviously a lot more versed in exactly, you know, the nuance behind this and who stands to gain, right? That's always the question you should always ask with any policy, right? Is who
follow
stands
the
to gain.
money.
Yeah, follow the money, right? I don't know enough to, you know, opine on that side of it. What I do know is that, you know, there is a ticking clock. That's been well communicated, right? That in the middle of this year, we've got no more funding. The state's cutting us off in order for us to continue doing what we've been doing, which, you know, I guess, I mean, I would say that, you know, there's certainly been some benefit that's come out of it. I'll be fair, right? But for them to continue doing that, they need to lock in this new source of funding. Is ultimately what it comes down to, right?
Which is the fees to the landowners.
Which is the fees. And it has to be. Everyone has to pay. That's the rule, right? Everyone has to pay. So we legally have to charge the guys that literally last night put 4 years worth of my own water into the ground. You know, so I'm the opposite of the sustainability problem. I'm like overproducing into the ground for our property, right?
Now, is this fee monthly or yearly?
Yearly.
Yearly. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And they still haven't like clearly defined. That's one of my big issues, right?
Sure.
It's like we're like trying to approve this thing. Like all of our local governments are like, yeah, sign us up, and no one's really clearly defined exactly what we're paying and why.
They
and
called
how.
Nancy Pelosi on that one.
We have to pass it.
We got to pass it first.
Yeah. Yeah. So
no, but the whole. Okay, I live in the watershed right next to the line. I played dominoes when I was little. I know when they knock down the first dominoes, the next dominoes are the guys that live outside of those dominoes. And I wasn't going to wait till I was affected. Some people that we were telling this 12 years ago, hey, this is coming down the pike, this is what's going to happen. Oh, no, that'll never happen. And here we are, but we've fought the good fight up to this point. And we've done a great job, and a lot of people have been educated in these last 12 years on all these different issues. The reason that the county that wanted to give away half of that voting power and not take care of the constituents, because they were convinced by that group that they would pay for their voting shares. So each of those groups that got those voting shares are supposed to put in a certain amount of money according to those shares on their participation in whatever the costs are. And now they're at the point where they've never put in anything because it's all been grant money, that they're going to have to actually start putting in some of their own money for the power that they were given. As the unincorporated area, we already pay for that through the employees that already work at the county in the flood control. So we're already paying for our part.
Yeah.
The city has to pay their part. San Miguel has to pay their part. You know, in that quiet title action, this is what's funny. They don't have any money to work on this project. Those organizations have paid $15 million to sue their own constituents. How come they have that money? Why they wasted grant money on bad things? They have plenty of money to sue our own constituents and pay lawyers or pay for studies that we already have. We went down there like. They did another study on state water, that cost almost $300,000. When I went down there to ask them why they're doing this, I had 6 previous studies that we've already paid, and I had the amounts on them. Why are you doing the same thing again? And it was one of the same consultants that was involved in one of the previous 6 studies. And when you look at where they get their information in the back of their study, it'll note all the other studies. It's like, what are you doing? How many times do we have to study how the chicken laid the egg?
Right. Wow. Well, guys, you know what? This has been awesome. You know, I mean, it just sounds like it's far from being over. You know, so for the viewers that have an interest, invested interest in, what's next for them? Is there a meeting coming up? Is there how can they get involved?
Well, so we're waiting to find out what these agencies are doing. I'm going to go to that Nacimiento meeting at 4 at 7 p.m. San Miguel's having a special meeting on one more time on this joint powers agreement. So we'll see what happens with that. Until they settle what's going on with the joint powers agreement, everything's just kind of just sitting there. Once that's decision, so let's just say they decide no. Okay, are they going to try to do something different, or is this dead in the water for right now? Again, the next Paso Basin cooperative meeting is March 26th. They just put out that annual report, and they want you to have your comments back by March 26th, and then that report is due on April 1st. So there's really no time to change stuff in that part of it. And the only reason, like I said, they were hurrying up on this other thing, trying to beat a certain deadline to come up with a proposal. I don't know when the rate study is going to be finished. I don't even know if they're going to complete the rate study if they don't get the joint powers thing agreed to. So there's a lot of stuff that's in motion that's being juggled that we don't know until those things actually happen. What the next step is. We're gonna.
So right now you guys are in a standstill.
Yeah, my new friend here has a website, and he's going to tell you about that. And we need people, and I'm going to give him information, and he can give me information. Yeah. And we're working on getting signage out there. We have a lot of signage that's been going up. There's radio commercials. There's other things that's happening, and those are just to get people's attention. To hopefully perk their ears up to when something does change, we're going to notify them as quickly as we can on what the next step will be, and if we need to, if we're going down this rabbit hole of the 218 vote, and what is going to be required, because like the one I got from a raise of a rubbish carrier, you were supposed to print your name, sign your name, put your parcel number, and if you're the owner of the tenant. Well, in this particular one, how many people are going to vote that live on the land? Is it one vote, one well? Is it, and then of course it's going to have to be on an assessor's parcel number. Well, I'm sure there's parcels out there that don't have wells. So who's going to get the proposal? How many proposals are actually going out? And what are the rules of the perimeters on what we're supposed to do? So until we know that, I don't want to tell somebody the wrong information and then we get something else that's completely different. Yeah.
So John, how does somebody stay in touch? Where can they go on your side?
Truly, that website, pasowater.com, that's a mailing list. So, beginning in the next week or two, I'm going to start sending out a schedule, of events. I'm working with, with Greg and another gentleman, Alan Duckworth, and a few others around the basin that, are going to kind of keep me informed on some of these opportunities to get a little bit more involved. I plan to also add some documentation up there. I would recommend that folks go to the county's water resources site. I can get that. I'll share it in the comments.
Groundwater Sustainability Agency. Under Blaine Reilly. You just Google the County of San Luis Obispo groundwater sustainability, and and that information will pop up. They can add their email address to that also, and then they'll get pop-ups from the county when they do certain things. You know, I get notified quite often because I've been involved in that stuff for the last 12, 13 years. And I'm on the Water Resources Advisory Board for the Cattlemen's Association. I did that for over 8 years for Supervisor Arnold. And so it's you got to look at too at how they plan some of these things. They plan them so that the average guy can't get there because he's at work or he's picking up his kids or it's dinner time when there's a meeting and he just got home.
It was like December, the town hall was like December 19th or something.
Yeah,
like
a week
that.
before Christmas.
Right.
Their first outreach, a
Brutal.
week before Christmas, and people would call me and I said, hey, if you can go, I'd love you to go, but if you can't go, you should call up this guy Blaine Reilly down here and you should tell him, hey, why did you do this right before Christmas? You know, what's going on? I was at the 3.5-hour meeting that happened before that. So they had the regular Paso Basin Cooperative Committee meeting, and then there was like an hour break in between when that meeting ended and this town hall started. And I think majority of the town hall people would have had more information if they would have came to the Paso Basin Cooperative meeting. Yeah. But that started at 1 or 1:30 or something.
On a work day.
Yeah.
Work day.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I appreciate you guys coming on. And again, you know, what's up, North County? You know, we're there just to provide information. You know, I mean,
Love it.
Again, knowledge is power. You know, whether you choose to use it or not, or for or against. I mean, that's what it's for here. You know, and your guys are able to come on and quite intensively explain what's going on and what people should be knowing about what's coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, and like you were
Literally.
and like you were saying earlier, is like when you talk to other people that maybe you're on the other side or maybe you don't know, it's there. You need all the information. I work with the facts, and the facts that I have make me believe that what they're trying to do is not a good thing. And the facts that I have, I used to carry around a lot of the documentation when people would tell me, well, that where's that written? I go, right here. Let me show you. It's all their documentation. It's documentation from the state, from the county, from these agencies, what they said back in 2005, what they said in 2010, what they said in 2014 and so on. There's so many articles and stuff out there. I got notebooks and I applied those notebooks to the grand jury. Dan Dow's office has a set of them. There's other people that do, because I was putting together all this information in order to show what they do. And like a lot of those people don't remember what they said a few years ago on how they wanted to bank water, export water, monetize water, and now some of the people in their agencies, why is it on their website that they use farming as a cover crop so they can sell water later at a higher price? So
Amazing. Well, gentlemen, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you
And like I said, I'm sure you guys will be back on again and continue this conversation and this fight and see what the next step is.
thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for having
gentlemen.
us.
Appreciate it. Well, there you have it, guys. Hey, Paso Robles Water Basin. It's in full swing right now. Get in the know. Get on over to Paso Water Basin. What is it, John, again?
PasoWater.com.
PasoWater.com and get signed up so that way you stay in the know of what's happening. But as always, guys, we can't do this without you and our sponsors. We'd like to thank Escalar Wine Travelers Hideaway, Visit Atascadero, 805 Customs, MGP Coatings, North County Junk Removal, The Trailer Barn, Story Termite Pest Control, Borjon Auto Center, Kennedy Club Fitness, Airflow Filter Services, and Suprema Meat Markets. Thanks again, guys. See you next time.
Hi, this is Dave Story, small game hunter with Story Termite and Pest. We're a full-service termite and pest control company. From rodents to termites, we can take care of all your pest control needs. Call today, we can tailor a pest control program that will meet your needs and budget. Contact us at 805-460-0650 or at storytermite.com. Remember, we don't have customers, we have friends.
Hi, it's Alex with Suprema Meat Market. We are a Mexican meat market with a taqueria. Come enjoy our high-quality cuts and meats. We offer choice and prime Harris Ranch beef, as well as chicken, seafood, and pork items. In the taqueria, all of our tacos come with handmade tortillas. We also offer specialty items like chilaquiles and chile rellenos. Come enjoy Taco Tuesday with Suprema. We offer our tacos at $1.99 each. Suprema Meat Market is located at 8950 Montecito Avenue in Atascadero.
Are you tired of looking at that worn-out concrete garage floor, patio, or porch? Look no further than MGP Coatings, where customer service reigns supreme. Our team goes above and beyond to ensure your satisfaction every step of the way. Before we even start coating, we meticulously repair your concrete, ensuring a flawless finish that lasts. And here's the best part. Our Pentec coatings are 4 times stronger than epoxy, so they won't chip or peel, making maintenance a breeze. Plus, they come with a limited lifetime warranty. Call us today at 805-952-5301 or check out our Facebook and Instagram and experience the MGP coating difference. Don't wait. Transform your garage, patio, porch, or driveway and become a part of the MGP coating family.
What's up, North County? This is Teresa Branch with Airflow Filter Service. We are a family-owned business right here in the North County. We have air filters, oils and lubricants, and hydraulic hoses. We provide services that include air filter cleaning, DPF cleaning, and waste oil collection. Come check us out at 1140 Ramada Drive, and we can help you with all your automotive and industrial vehicle needs.
Hi, this is Omid
and Deanna
at North County Junk Removal. We are a business known for helping our neighbors and our community.
Let us help you save money and get rid of any unwanted items.
And rest assured that our professional team adheres to global standards of safety and recycling. We are fully licensed and insured for your peace of mind.
We are locally owned and operated, and we look forward to helping you with all your junk removal needs.
Please call us at 805-769-6966.
Atascadero isn't your standard getaway. We're unique, just like you. We're growing, transforming, and figuring it out as we go. We're a town filled with innovators, artists, makers, and game changers. We're a little bit country, a little bit funky, and always authentic. We're here for your good times, your slow times, and your changing times. We're all in Atascadero. Come see for yourself. Learn more at visitatascadero.com.